Well, good day everybody, and welcome to this information webinar on the Modular Masters in Formulation Science and Technology. One or two people haven't yet joined, but I think in the interest of time we'll make a start, as recordings will be available later for everybody. So first of all, yes, this is being recorded, so if for some reason there are technical problems for yourselves during the webinar, or if your colleagues wish to access the information, then we will make the recording and the slides available for you after the event. At the moment, all of you listening are on mute. We will attempt to unmute you for the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Alternatively, there is the option to use the chat or question function to ask questions for myself or my colleague David Calvert and Tina Roberts of Cogent. Between us, we hope to be able to answer all of your questions today. So the Modular Masters in Formulation Science and Technology. I'm just having some difficulties with the slides, so bear with me there, please. Right. So we're going to start off with some background to the Science Industry Partnership and the Modular Masters. We are then going to move on to the status of the phase one, the pilot phase of the Modular Masters, which is already in operation. Then going to spend some time talking about the tender itself for the full Masters, a timeline for that tender process, some information on where you should go for further information or assistance with the process, and then finally we'll finish off with some questions. So the Science Industry Partnership has a vision of essentially employers getting together to produce the skills programs needed to help them generate innovation and growth in all industries that use science. And the Science Industry Partnership is an industry grouping chaired by GSK, but involving a huge number of other employers, which together with project managers Cogent successfully this year secured £32 million of government funding for the Science Industry Partnership proposal. The Science Industry Partnership not only is developing a skills strategy for science using industries, but is also co-investing in new skills and education projects with employers. And the SIP was publicly launched earlier this year in July. And at the top right-hand of that slide, you will see the web address for the Science Industry Partnership, where you can find more about the overall partnership and its objectives. The SIP will have a number of programs ranging across, I guess, the chemistry using sectors in general. These include STEM careers programs, traineeships, smart apprenticeships, and a number of workforce development measures. In the higher education area, what we're focusing on in particular today will be the Formulation Technology Modular Masters program. There are a number of other higher education programs within the SIP, a program called Industry Graduates and a potential program which will be the Advanced Training Partnership in Industrial Biotechnology. If you have more questions about the overall Science Industry Partnership, please address those to Jenny Klukas at Cogent, and on that slide you will see Jenny's contact details. Now let's concentrate now on the Formulation Science and Technology Masters. And Where we've got to in terms of the planning for this has arisen from an extensive industry consultation which began last year prior to the SIP being awarded its funding. So the features of the modular masters in formulation are, first of all, obviously that it has a modular framework which can be built up and customized in a way that's suitable for industry, for the company involved, and for the individual. It's designed for students studying part-time during their employment and being encouraged by their employer to attend one or more modules. When we conducted the industry consultation last year, one thing that was quite clear and what industry were very interested in was the opportunity for multiple providers to get together, let's say in a consortium, to provide tuition and learning from the best of the best. So this could potentially be a consortium masters with multiple providers, multiple education establishments providing content and tuition. Flexibility is very much the byword of the modular masters. It should be capable of being taken purely as a series of one-off courses, as CPD, if that's what employers and students wish, but also there should be the potential for the modules to be built up into qualifications such as a postgrad certificate, postgrad diplomas, or indeed, of course, the full master's qualification over a period of time. And it's anticipated that the full master's, if studied part-time, would take between 3 and 5 years for the student. The employers were keen to see a variety of different delivery and assessment methods. So in terms of delivery, that means not only traditional in-person tuition and practical tuition, laboratory tuition, but also for reasons of flexibility and time management, very keen to see students being able to engage in e-learning and distance learning to make really good use of their time. In terms of assessment, that means a variety of different assessment methods, not just traditional exams, but also dissertations, presentations, and written assignments as well. And very much focused on advanced skills in the workplace. We're talking about master's level tuition, we're talking about theoretical skills, and we're talking about practical skills, which can be used by the students once they're back in their workplace. Very keen also, the employers were very keen to see a project element. So about 1/3 of the total masters would be in the state of a project, a research project carried out probably at the premises of the employer. And also very keen to see ongoing industrial governance of the program as it's implemented and develops. So those are the essential features which industry said that they would like to see in the modular masters. And to get things up and running, the Science Industry Partnership was successfully launched earlier this year, and in a first step, a series of pilot modules have been chosen already to be delivered up until around about Q1, Q2 next year. And those include 2 modules from the University of Birmingham, which will be in-person short courses lasting respectively 1 week and 3 days, with taught content as well as practical elements in them. The first one on colloids and rheology will be in November, and the second one on characterization will be in March. Another module will be delivered by De Montfort University as online e-learning in the main, and that's on design principles for formulation. And then there will be a biopharmaceuticals pre-formulation module delivered as distance learning by the University of Manchester. All 4 of those modules subject to final agreements being reached between the SIP and the providers. The credits from those modules, these are pilot modules, but the credits from those modules will be capable of being taken forward into the full masters once we know who the successful applicants for that full masters program are. And those modules must be held open until the end of 2015. Those credits must be held until the end of 2015. Now, it's important to remember that although those 3 institutions have been selected to deliver the pilot modules in stage 1, those providers will receive no preferential treatment in this full masters application which we're discussing today. So although they will be delivering, we know, over the next few months, it doesn't mean that they will be necessarily a member of any successful application, and nor indeed, if they don't wish, are they obliged to apply for the full masters. So this is a method really of getting the modular masters up and running and generating interest and useful content for employers. Now, this slide here gives you an overview of the program, which again rose from the industry consultation. And it's important to remember at this point that although the industry consultation came up with this kind of structure, if you're interested in applying to run the full masters, when you come to do that, this is not set in tablets of stone. It's not rigid, so it's perfectly possible to deviate somewhat from this structure. But this is, if you like, the template structure that we're starting with. First of all, that would be around 6 modules totaling 60 credits in the core section. And these modules are content which is applicable across any industry that uses formulation. So things like colloids, rheology, characterization methods, fundamental solid and liquid formulation practicalities will be included in the core modules. Then the optional modules, there will be, as anticipated, to be a choice of around 20 or more very specialized and more industry-specific modules. So this is where you can go into more depth as a student into particular topics, or to ensure that your specific area of industry formulation knowledge is covered. And those optional modules will again total 60 credits. And finally, the project which we mentioned before has to be an industry relevant and practical research project, which will also be a further 60 credits. So you can see how the 180 credits builds up to the full masters, 60 in core, 60 credits in optional, and 60 credits as the project. Now, and this gives you a short indication of those core modules. We've mentioned some of those topics before. So we have design principles, we have colloid chemistry, we have characterization, we have the fundamentals of liquids and solid formulation on delivery, and processing principles. And in the documentation which will be supplied with the tender document, once that's available, there will be short descriptions of the envisaged content for those modules. Moving on to the optional modules, and you can see here, around about 20 potential modules in varying different topics. We won't go through all of those today. Suffice to say that, again, this is not tablets of stone. So if you're applying on your own or as part of a consortium to run this masters, following the sessions we have today, then you're quite welcome to vary from this and explain why you wish to vary from this. So that's the content. The timetable now for the process is quite important. So there will be the information webinars. This is the second information webinar. Today the 13th. If you are interested in applying, then that should be done by email to Tina Roberts. A simple email to say that you're interested in applying is sufficient by 12 o'clock on the 24th of October. The formal request for quotations The formal document will be issued on Friday the 31st of October, and we're now giving a little bit of extra time to submit those applications and allow you to form consortia if you wish to go for a consortium bid. So the deadline for that application will be 12 noon on Christmas Eve, so everybody needs to be working up until Christmas Eve, I guess. Interviews then provisionally would be in early January, on the 13th of January, and a decision made a few days after that. Let's look a little bit more now at the specification for the tender itself. So when you come to see the tender document, the specification will include a description on how you envisage that modular structure to exist and to take place. The tender specification must demonstrate flexibility, so your application must show that you have a variety of different delivery modes there. So we mentioned distance learning, e-learning, in-person learning, and a practical element. Also very keen to show a variation or flexibility in different sorts of assessment, appropriate for those different delivery modes and appropriate for the particular content in question. And flexibility in terms of providers. So the exact model we're leaving up to you to propose in your applications. If you want to be a single provider and do it all yourself, that's perfectly okay. But if you wish to form a consortium and have a number of you institutions providing content and delivering content, that's absolutely fine as well, and that can be done as the institution, or it can be done by subcontracting. It can be subcontracting to other higher education providers. It can be using private sector and other institutions to provide outside the HE sector as well. The program itself, we've in the previous slides shown you the outline program in terms of core module content, optional module content, and the project. Now, the program that you propose in your application can deviate from this. So, for instance, you may wish to combine different modules. You may wish to add modules, which we hadn't thought of. And, of course, you can deviate from that structure, but you know, we'd be asking for you to explain, you know, why you would deviate from that template. But new ideas, innovative ideas will be highly welcome at the application stage. So this is not a rigid template that you've seen. Important also in the application to identify any gaps. We wouldn't expect necessarily that, although we think that a lot of the content is already available at many providers, we wouldn't expect you to have 100% of the content already in place in your institution. So we would be asking you to identify any obvious gaps and describe any plans to develop new material or modify existing material. Part-time study, we mentioned this before, so that's envisaged that the student would study over 3 to 5 years part-time, and there will be a maximum length of time for those credits to be valid, and we'd ask you to specify what that maximum length of time that would be. The lead applicant for any application in this must be a higher education institution, and that would be identified on the application. Now, other consortium members, if it's a consortium bid, may be other universities, other HEIs, but they can also be private sector bodies or other education providers. So it's possible to be, let's say, an SME provider, a consultant, or a trade body, for instance, which provides education, and they can join a constitution. But the lead applicant and at least one of the applicants must be capable of actually awarding an academic qualification, so it must be in a higher education institution. We're going to be asking you to describe how, in a consortium bid, that cross-accreditation, cross-recognition of different modules and content would work. So obviously, if there are a number of organizations providing content, then each of them has to recognize the quality of of those modules to allow for academic recognition of those modules. There's also potential for involvement of professional bodies in this process. So if you have particular ideas on how you would involve professional associations and learned societies in this application, then that would be highly welcome as well. A point of information, I think it's quite important to understand that the Modular Masters will be provided with an administrative function from Cogent and the Science Industry Partnership. That would mean that that administrative function would take a fee, a percentage fee, if you like, from the student fees, and would provide centralized booking and payment systems, would also provide co-marketing along with the consortium of the program, so promoting to the outside world and recruiting essentially employers and employees into the program, and also be the front line, the first point of call for the employer and for the employee when they sit down to decide the program which that employee is going to follow. Very important to have governance and sustainability of the program in place, so we're going to be asking applicants to describe how that program would be sustainable over a long period of time, how that program would be governed, how industry would be involved in that governance. So it's not intended to be a short-term program, it's intended to provide long-term benefit to employers over a period of time. Now, student fees. Student fees essentially would be variable according to the nature of the module in question, so not every module has to have precisely the same fee structure. So each module would have a price, and we'd be asking you to propose price ranges, fee ranges for those individual modules. As a guidance for a full master's program, industry expectation, at the consultation stage, was around £11,000 for a full master's. One potentially attractive feature for employers, which you'd be interested to know about, is that the SIP provides co-funding, essentially a subsidy for SMEs. So qualifying SMEs can receive up to £500 to attend a module. So it's per module, per student per module to attend. So that we think will be very beneficial in attracting SMEs into this program. Now, during the application, we will be asking applicants to request and justify a development budget. So there is a pot of money available from the Science Industry Partnership to get the program up and running. It's not an ongoing subsidy to the program, but it's essentially CCORN funding to get certain functions up and running, and that guideline figure is around about £200,000. And that provides for the process of recognition and accreditation to be carried out by the consortium or by the successful provider. So, for instance, where modules have to be, which are developed in one institution, have to be recognised by the awarding institution, then clearly that has a resource and cost associated with it. So that budget is available for that. If any content has to be transferred, for instance, from traditional learning platforms to e-learning, then that budget also can be spent on that activity. And if any gaps need to be filled and content needs to be commissioned from experts to put together new content to add to modules or to develop new module content, then that's included in that figure as well. So we'll be asking applicants to describe how any budget would be spent and how that would be broken down into those various different activities. And it's also worth mentioning, if we don't mention it elsewhere, that there is a considerable resource available within the SIP and Cogent in terms of people on the ground already at the moment who are going around knocking on the doors already of employers and telling them about the future masters, modular masters. So we do anticipate a good demand from industry, and we think that that co-marketing is a very attractive feature for a potential provider to have. So the SIP will be helping to promote and market the masters to employers and employees. Also be publishing some in the full document when you see it, some evaluation criteria, two separate, if you like, value for money criteria. First of which is how that SIP money, that development funding, is spent. So that will be assessed for value for money, and also value for money for employers. So the fees that employers pay for their employees to attend the Modular Masters will be assessed in terms of its value as well. Important is the capability and the track record of the consortium and the lead educational provider. So we're looking for some sort of capability in terms of already having delivered similar and relevant programs on previous industrial engagement which those institutions have taken part in. Also be looking very closely at all of those factors we've mentioned before, which make up the quality of the proposed program. So things like the content, is it appropriate? The flexibility of the program, what measures are being put in place for accreditation. We'll be looking for innovative proposals, so if there are new ideas, please come forward with those. Be looking for sustainability of the program, and be looking for the program to be up and running extremely quickly once the successful applicant has been announced. So as I mentioned before, once you see the full tender documentation, then supporting information will be included in that, and that will include a summary of the industry consultations which have already taken place, as well as the envisaged content and structure of the program. As I mentioned before, if you want to see more background on the partnership itself, then there is a web page which you can access, and indeed there is a section within that for the Modular Masters, which includes some downloadable literature on the program. If you have any further inquiries, please address them first of all by email, either to ourselves at iFormulate, that's info@iformulate.biz, or to Tina Roberts at Cogent. As we mentioned before, recording will be available to you after today's webinar, and indeed also the slides which I've shown to you today. So now I'm going to attempt, first of all, to unmute all of you one by one, so bear with me. We'll either take questions via the chat function or via your audio, and I'll let you know when that unmuting process has taken place. So not everybody's unmuted yet. Come through. So do try and keep your background noise down, as you are now all live and unmuted. So quite happy to take questions from anybody.
Jim, it's Paul Luckham here.
Hello, Paul.
Hi. What is the likely background of the participants of this Masters? The reason for asking is that as it's a Masters course, there's an implication that the students will have done a first degree, certainly in terms of registration and stuff here at Imperial and everywhere else. So all the students have done a master's degree, sorry, a bachelor's degree, or a first degree already.
Yes, the majority will have done. So when we talk to companies about the likely students, the majority, I think, will be relatively recent graduates, let's say in chemistry, for instance, or chemical engineering potentially, who have joined the organisation but don't have any particular understanding of formulation. So they will be recent graduates. Some of them will be more experienced, who've worked their way up, if you like, from vocational qualifications, may have on the way then acquired a bachelor's degree. There may be one or two who don't have those formal qualifications, in which case then presumably some degree of assessment has to go in place, so the institution will have to assess whether they're suitable and whether they qualify for registration for the masters. But the majority I would expect to be bachelor's qualified, yes.
Okay.
Do we have any more questions?
Hello, my name is Sandrine.
Hello, Sandrine.
I got a question about the credits. So, how many time of work is a credit for a student?
I have some figures there, and actually what I'll do is provide those. The regulations of different institutions are all slightly different, Sandrine. So what I will do outside this webinar is to send you an indication of what different institutions count as a credit. So normally there is a figure for contact time and for non-contact time, and that differs from institution to institution. But I'll send you some information on those typical ranges rather than give you a number that's not correct on the phone right now.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You'll send that to all of us, Jim?
Sorry?
You'll send that to all of us, not just Sandrine.
Yes, I will. Yes, I'll send that to everybody. Yeah.
Okay, good, thanks.
I have a question on the chat function here from Craig. Craig, can the optional modules be 20 credits? Yes, there's no reason why optional modules can't be 20 credits. You may want to bundle together some of those topics that we've shown you indicatively on those slides, or you may wish to let's go into more depth than we've anticipated. So as long as there are sensible reasons for building a 20 credit module, then that's absolutely fine. There's no need to restrict them to 10 or to 5s. So as long as the content looks good and looks relevant, absolutely no problem with that.
Okay, Jim, thank you for that answer.
Do we have any more questions? So I'm just waiting to see if there are any more questions either by text or by voice. And I didn't hear any more, so I'm assuming that that's enough. So thank you very much for your time today. After today, we will provide slides and webinar recording, and of course we're available at any time by email if you have any further questions. Don't forget that your first step should be to indicate to Tina Roberts you're interested in applying, and if you register your interest with a simple email, then you'll get sent the tender documents. So thank you for your attendance today, and we look forward to seeing your applications. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.